Tell me, are you preparing for your PRINCE2 7th Edition Practitioner Exam? And how would you like to learn key question formats, scoring and study strategies in order for you to pass with confidence? Now, as the accredited trainer for the Projex Academy, PRINCE2 Accredited Training Organisation, ATO, once a year I like to sit the PRINCE2 Practitioner Exam to keep myself sharp. And just a few weeks back, I sat and passed the latest live exam in 2025. Now, the total exam experience gave me valuable insights that I want to share to help you prepare effectively for your exam. So this presentation breaks down key question formats, scoring weightage, and essential topics to focus on so you can walk into the exam room with confidence. So first off, some stuff that you're probably aware of already. The 2025 PRINCE2 7th Edition Practitioner Exam consists of 70 questions. The exam lasts 2.5 hours, that's 150 minutes. And out of those 70 questions, you need to get 42 right, giving yourself 60%. Yes, the pass score has increased by 5%. Now, the exam is open book, as you probably know, allowing the use of the PRINCE2 official guide. But familiarity with the material is absolutely crucial. Now, the practitioner exam will contain one of 4 scenarios contained within the PRINCE2 official guide. You'll find these on pages 12 to 17. Now, in the live exam, you will also have additional information, usually in the form of organisational role or resource options. If you've taken the sample paper, and you should, you'll know that in addition to setting out the stages of the scenario, you'll also have a list of individuals who would be involved within the project in some way. And you can rest assured 1 or 2 questions will be testing whether you understand which individual would best fit which PRINCE2 role. Now, it's vital, therefore, that you review all of these 4 scenarios. Of course, the 4th is the sample paper, which, if you invest in Projex Academy's PRINCE2 Practitioner Masterclass, you'll find that included. Now, in the 4 scenarios in the live exam, one was scenario 2, yours could be the same or different, and therefore it's very important to become familiar with each scenario. Now, the practitioner exam now places greater emphasis on PRINCE2 practices over the PRINCE2 processes. And here's the 7 in my diagram below. Since over half the exam focuses on PRINCE2 practices, it's absolutely important that you allocate more study time to these areas. That's certainly what I found as I was answering the questions. So here's how the exam is weighted. Applying PRINCE2 principles in context, 10% of the exam questions. Applying people management in projects, 9% of questions. But when it comes to practices and processes, you can clearly see here that PRINCE2 applying and tailoring PRINCE2 practices is over 50% of the marks available, whereas applying and tailoring PRINCE2 processes is 30%. You can see here that the main focus of preparing for your exam should be the application and tailoring of PRINCE2 practices as well as the processes. So to help you prioritise and prepare, I want to remind you of the new marking scheme focus. Now, there are 2 types of question. The first is called a standard question. You're probably most familiar with this. It'll normally be in the form of the project is in the, and it'll name one of the 7 processes. The project manager has decided to take some action. Let's call it Y. And the question will go on to say, was this an appropriate action for the project manager to take and why? They'll give you the options, and there'll be 2 yeses and 2 nos. Option answer A is yes because of statement XXX, or yes because of YYY, or no because of XXX, or no because of YYY. And common question variations of this type would include which principle is being applied, or is this an appropriate application, or how well does this align with PRINCE2 methodology? Then you have the matching question. Now, these require linking roles to responsibilities. For example, which role, A to E, we'll see that shortly, is responsible for each action? And here in this example question, that's all it is. A is a project manager, and so on and so forth. And for each action, you must assign the correct role. So the PRINCE2 7 exam requires higher order thinking, categorised under what's known as Bloom's Levels 3 and 4. And it's important that you understand these. Now, Bloom's Level 3, or BL3, this is where you're asked to apply knowledge to a situation. BL3, therefore, is a somewhat easier question to answer, whereas Bloom's Level 4, BL4, is where you're asked to analyse provided information and evaluate the effectiveness of actions. And normally, if folks don't make the grade, it's because of these BL4 questions and their ability to analyse a particular situation. And as you saw from the marking scheme, you also have PRINCE2 principles. It's important to know that all PRINCE2 principles questions are tested at BL4, therefore requiring deep analytical skills. An example of a BL4 question might be, analyse whether an approach to applying one of the 7 practices is named, is effective considering the following: PRINCE2 principles, considering effective management techniques, considering tailoring to the project environment. So I'll say again, since BL4 questions are more challenging, you need to dedicate extra study time to them so that when it comes to the exam, you have a deep understanding. Now I want to talk about dummy answers. That's not an official name, it's what I've called them. You see, one way of honing down your answer options, A, B, C or D, is to consider that at least one answer will probably be what I call a dummy. Now the concept of dummy answers, like I say, that's not official. The standard question types have 4 answer options, A or B or C or D. In standard questions, at least one answer is typically a dummy answer, where that answer is technically correct but irrelevant to the actual question. And I've seen so many folks lose marks because they read this question set up too quickly and don't focus in on exactly what the answer options are asking you to answer. To help spot dummy answers, therefore, carefully read the question's precise wording. Very often, a question will be in 2 or 3 sentences, and you may well find that one of those sentences then focuses on what the answer is you're looking for. Second approach is to ask yourself, does this answer, A, B, C or D, directly address the question? If not, you may have found yourself a dummy. And third, check for distractors that may sound correct in and of themselves, but miss the point. Again, a rich source of losing marks. So this strategy to identify potential dummy answers will improve your accuracy in choosing the actual correct response answer, and thereby gaining marks. And to help spot the dummy answers, consider the dummy answer option. Although true, it does not explain the precise question statement. So my advice is to read the question carefully, even though you may be against the clock and you might be tending to rush, as this may set up more than one statement of actions, so giving you the chance to nail down the exact question statement. Moving on to blank paper. Now, you are allowed to bring in 2 sheets of blank paper to make notes on during the exam. So one of the things I've learned in taking the live exam is I recommend doing a swift diagram of the scenario stages, like a set of columns, if you will, and the main deliverables for constant reference during the exam. You see, using the proctor, you'll be reading the questions, but then you have to click another button to go back and remind yourself of the scenario. And this can get you into trouble. Let me explain. You see, suppose a question describes you as being in stage 3 of this particular scenario, and you start looking at answer options. One of the things that I nearly stumbled over is stage 3 the last one or not? How many stages are there, in other words? You see, your answer may be different if, for example, looking at closing a project. If you know that stage 3 is the last one, then an option discussing closing a project would be relevant. If stage 4 is the last, then it wouldn't. Get the idea? Now, let's move through some of the new key updates. PRINCE2 7 has introduced a dedicated people element. Here's a nice little diagram showing you. And this aligns with the organising practice. The organising practice was previously called the organisation theme. Practice, or best practice, is a much better description. So the people element, here shown in my diagram, considers those working on the project and those affected by the project. Look at the other green boxes around here, the project context, the 7 processes, the 7 principles, and the 7 practices. So read all 15 pages of the people element. That's pages 31 to 46, as these will be new to you. Understand the structure and content of both the related management products, involved. This will be the change management approach and the communication management approach. Yes, there are more approaches in the 7th edition. You need to familiarise yourself with these 4 sections, pages 32 to 46, and be clear what occurs in each: leading successful change, leading successful teams, communication, and the section in the guide called People are Central to the Method. So although the 7 core principles remain, some have been renamed slightly and expanded. Once more, read pages 19 to 28 within the official guide carefully to understand the nuances. There is new information, with many questions of them. As I've said earlier, all principal questions are at BL4 level. Be clear about the differences, for example, between managed by stages and managed by exception. The wording in the question will help you get the right answer. Now, PRINCE2 now includes sustainability. This is now one of the 7 performance targets. The previous version of PRINCE2 had, if you remember, time, cost, quality, risk, benefits, and scope. But now sustainability brings a total to 7. And also that means that your previous 6 tolerances are now 7 tolerances. Once more, you'll find these on pages 10 to 11. And while we're on sustainability, be clear about the 17 United Nations goals covering environmental, social, and governance. Read the sustainability sections and how it is applied in each practice. You'll find this under Applying the Practice and Sustainability Targets. Understand how sustainability is covered within the business case. So sustainability is now embedded across PRINCE2 7 roles: sustainability responsibilities, PRINCE2 documentation, such as plans and reports, practices, such as the business case, processes, such as activities to confirm sustainability requirements. Bringing us to PRINCE2 scenarios. Now, as I've said, there's 4 of them, but there's some hidden clues I learned when I took my recent exam. You see, scenarios throughout the official guide illustrate how PRINCE2 may be tailored. Here's a small section of one of them for Scenario 2, the Lewistown City Council. However, these little scenarios often contain subtle clues relevant to exam questions, so identify and study these carefully. To help you do that, in this next 2 slides, looks rather busy, but pause the video. Here, for each of the 4 scenarios, I've given you the page numbers that you'll find within the official guide where each scenario occurs. So data knowledge, page 42, page 85, and so on. Lewistown City Council, you can see there's a lot more references there from page 43 all the way through to page 198. When it comes to scenario 3, that's called Find F. You'll find these, as I've shown, from page 32 through to page 195, and the final one, scenario 2, which is the sample exam, which, if you invest in our PRINCE2 7th edition Practitioner Masterclass, will give you 120 questions on this particular scenario. Once more, going through the manual, check out the pages from page 36 to page 204. Now, there's also something called the new issues practice. It was previously called the change theme, but it's now more correctly been restructured into the issues practice with several important differences. So you need to make absolutely clear you understand what these are. Change is now correctly seen as a subset of issues, as it always was. So this section, in the official guide from pages 171 to 188, is critical as it describes how change is now managed in PRINCE2 7th edition. You need to understand the structure and content of the 3 issue-related management products, that is, the issue management approach, the issue register, and the issue report. Be quite clear, many of these management products have changes from the previous edition. And here's something which caught me by surprise. Listen carefully. As it happens, each PRINCE2 7 process includes a RACI table defining who is R responsible, A accountable, C consulted, and I informed. And again, here's a little snapshot of one example. In this case, just a small section of the initiating a project process. But here's the thing. Questions often ask, who is responsible for carrying something out? Or who needs to be informed? Very general, and the clue to answering these is immediately go to your RACI table because it'll give you the right answer. So mastering these tables will improve your ability to answer responsibility-related questions correctly. Now, there are many exam questions on the application of practices to each process. Again, you'll find these new sections in the manual. Here, once again, the example I've chosen is from the initiating a project process. And this table shows how you'd apply the business case practice, the organising practice, and so on and so forth. Do make sure you understand these. Read them thoroughly. There are also many exam questions on the focus area of key roles for each practice. So here I've chosen a particular practice, and you can see the new business layer at the very top, the project executive, and so on and so forth. Once more, read these thoroughly. Make sure you understand what these areas of focus are, as many exam questions will be on them. There are also many exam questions on how to apply each practice and the supporting management product contents. Again, just as an example, here's a management product, the risk register, showing you the purpose, high-level content, and so on and so forth. Do make sure you read all of these thoroughly so you understand what sort of information needs to be captured. Now, there are many exam questions on each practice key relationships with the principles. So once more, a new section within the manual is relating the principles to each of the practices. And of the 7 principles, here's the first 2: ensured continued business justification and learn from experience for a given practice. There are also many easy or easier BL3 level questions on supporting techniques. And you'll find there's a lot of new techniques, such as estimating. It's important that you don't just gloss these over, become familiar with them. The little example I've shown here is the investment appraisal techniques used in the business case. You'll find a lot more detail that you need to become familiar with. So learn the activities for the sections within the official guide called recommended actions for the usually project manager, or it could be a team manager or another role. So with regard to the quality practice, prepare in detail. Again, pages 131 through to 149. And talking about quality, the product description has now changed. The quality criteria, as it used to be called in the 6th edition, has now been restructured into functional specifications describing how a particular product would need to perform and what it must do, and non-functional specifications, how it operates, including its performance characteristics. So understanding these updates is absolutely crucial for answering product-related questions accurately. There's also a new product called the Project Log. You'll find out about this on pages 310 through to 312. What may not become evident, and it's important to know for the exam, is the project log is set up in the starting up a project process, where typically only the lessons log and the daily log are populated, because of course that's pre-project. However, the rest of the project log is set up in the initiating a project process. And here you'll be adding the issue register, the product register, the quality register, and the risk register. Once more, some of these are new, so make sure you understand their content. And don't forget your friend Appendix A. Go through that to make sure you're familiar with each of these management products. Turning now to risk. Now, this is a popular question. The risk practice has new sections, so once more, reading detail. You'll find those on page 151 to 169. And when you're reading questions, watch the wording carefully, as it will give you a clue. Remember that if they're talking about a risk, whether it's a negative threat or a positive opportunity, this has yet to have happened. So you'll see past tense being used. Whereas if it's an issue, it already has happened. So once more, read the question carefully. Sticking to risk here, you will be asked to decide what response is being used. This is a very popular question, whether it's a threat or an opportunity, with regards to an action statement. So they'll state some action that's being taken, and the right answer is you identifying which response option is it talking about. Once more, is it a threat or an opportunity? You'll find these starting on page 155. So do, once more, make sure you're very clear what each option looks like and feels like in terms of details. Now, is the PRINCE2 7 harder than the 6th edition? Well, as an accredited trainer and someone that has been intimately involved with PRINCE2 since, frankly, 1998, from my 2005 exam experience, the PRINCE2 7th edition Practitioner Exam is more challenging than its predecessor. It certainly has a higher emphasis on analytical skills, and the new people and sustainability elements make having a thorough preparation absolutely essential. Now, while many PeopleCert accredited training organisations use the regular PeopleCert training material, here at Projex Academy we went one stage further. We developed our own enhanced PRINCE2 7th edition foundation exam and PRINCE2 7th edition practitioner exam preparation material, which needed to be rigorously assessed by PeopleCert. So here are the results of our PeopleCert assessor team report on our material. It stated clearly that the learning objectives and expected outcomes are clearly shown, and there is a course schedule and agenda for the minimum contact hours as set out in the syllabus. The report continued that the proper and latest sample papers are part of the training material and there is a logical structure in the courseware itself. Yes, indeed, we made sure that both sample papers were included within our training. The team report goes on to state that the Projex Academy e-learning solution is both user-friendly and fully appropriate for the purposes of training and preparing delegates for their live exam event. The team report continues that the courseware material includes the latest sample examination papers, which it does, along with their respective answers and rationale in order to better prepare students for the practitioner examination. I'll make the point again that this is far better than the regular material that most ATOs use. The team report continues that the Projex Academy holistic approach provides preparatory guidance and balances mastery of the content and preparation for the practitioner certification examination itself. Finally, the PeopleCert Assessor Team Report states that our Projex Academy courseware is in full accordance with the official syllabus and is effective in preparing the attendees of our training for their practitioner exam. Once more, I make the point that we can provide far better value than regular ATO training. Fear not, you can pass your PRINCE2 exam on first try. So for a structured step-by-step learning, check out Projex Academy's PRINCE2 7th edition masterclass. This has been rigorously audited and approved by PeopleCert, where you will find everything you need to pass on your first attempt. So until we meet up again, from me, Dave, it's bye for now.